The United States and Canada failed to reach a deal before Friday's deadline on the North American Free Trade Agreement, but the two sides agreed to continue talks next week. Hello, I'm Nathan King, filling in for Anna Naidu, and this is The Heat. Hello again. After hours of negotiations, Canada says there's still more work to be done before signing off on a revised North American Free Trade Agreement known as NAFTA. US President Donald Trump put pressure on Canada to reach a compromise after reaching what seemed like a preliminary deal earlier this week with Mexico. The US President informed the US Congress Friday he still intends to sign a new agreement by late November with or without Canada. Day of drama, and we begin our coverage with CGTN's Daniel Ryntjes, who is outside the Canadian Embassy in Washington, D.C., as news has been breaking there all afternoon. Canadian Foreign Minister Chrystia Freeland held a press conference, Daniel, a few hours. What position now?
Well, it all looked so conventional, Nathan, leading up to this last day of this self-imposed sort of deadline that Donald Trump imposed on his own negotiators and on Canada to get this deal done. And we thought, well, it looks like from all the things they've said that it's going to happen today. And then we had a little leak, a leak of some comments made by Donald Trump to reporters that he said were off the record, but somehow they got into the Toronto Star, and they said essentially that Donald Trump believed that he had the upper hand in the negotiations, that he wouldn't make any concessions to the Canadians, that he threatened them with the potential to have tariffs on the auto sector, which would be damaging, very damaging Canadians, and therefore they were getting everything that they wanted. Well, Chrystia Freeland, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, refused to sort of engage in a tit-for-tat exchange with Donald Trump on that. Instead, she said, I'm negotiating with U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer. I believe he's negotiated in good faith, and I call on all parties to have flexibility going into the final sort of conclusion of these talks. But certainly I think her attitude was, we're in no rush to get this done. We'll wait until Canada has what it needs out of all of this. Take a listen.
This is a very complex agreement, and we are going to continue working at it. As we've said from the outset, our objective in these talks is to update and modernize NAFTA in a way that is good for Canadians, good for Americans, and good for Mexicans. Know that a win-win-win agreement is within reach, and that's what we're working towards. With goodwill and flexibility on all sides, I know we can get there.
Now, she said that she would not reveal any of the sticking points because she'd agreed that with Lighthizer. There was mention, of course, of the concessions that possibly will be made on the Canadian dairy industry, but that's all we have for now.
Okay, Daniel, thanks so much. Obviously a fast-moving story. President Trump pushed for this Friday deadline. What's the timeline now for a final agreement?
Well, this Friday deadline was actually a little bit of a false deadline because Donald Trump could have given this notification to Congress, a 30-day period in which he would then have he then has to come up with the actual text. And during this 30-day period, he can go ahead and renegotiate with Canada and agree the text as long as they come in on board. Now, he has threatened, of course, to only do the deal that he's agreed with the US and Mexico, but Congress has made it very clear, particularly top Republicans, that that would be unacceptable. So in the end, what we have here is a 30-day period where they have to come up with the text. Then Congress has 60 days to have their up or down, or their yes or no votes, which could then approve or not approve it. If they don't approve it, then they have to go back to the drawing board.
Daniel, thanks so much. We'll speak to you in 29 days.